And today I want to talk about, well, I'm calling it Secrets of the Credential Management APIs. Now, has anybody heard of the Credential Management APIs before? Hands up. That's 1, 2, 3, 5. Okay, that's 5 is more than normally put it up. But for the rest of you, I guess it's not so much secrets of these APIs, but the APIs have been sort of kept a secret from you a little bit. And we'll dig into a bit of that soon. Now, I also realize this is a 20-minute talk. I might talk a little fast because the last time I gave this was about half an hour. So let's crack on with it. My name's Phil Nash. I am a developer evangelist at a company called Twilio. If you want to learn about Twilio or talk to me again later, I have a booth on the other side there, opposite the coffee stand. So come say hi to me there, or catch me online. I am Phil Nash all over the internet, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever, or hit me up on email, philnash@twilio.com. We have a question already. Yeah. I love it, right? I will pay anything to have my domain name like that. Also, some Phil Nash has got philnash.com and is holding on to it and doing nothing with it anymore. So, but this is better. This is better. Cool. So what I want to kind of talk about is like better authentication experiences. I have this concern that when we build applications on the web, that the important and interesting things that we work on are, the applications are actually building, that thing beyond the login experience, the thing that users actually want to get to. And that login tends to be friction, the thing that goes in the way of people getting to do the stuff that they actually care about. And I want to improve that. So I was looking at some data a while back, and this 24% number comes from a survey that Google did at the end of 2018 about kind of security things that users do. And 24% was the number of people who use a password manager from that survey. 24%, not bad, actually a pretty good number. But that still means 3/4 of people are not using a password manager, which sort of is bad because passwords, right? In fact, and I do want to kind of prefix this by the fact that we're probably developers or power users of computers and our laptops in our daily work, and we probably are amongst those 24% that do use a password manager, or in fact have worked on your own login experience so that you don't have to worry about that. It's normally a click. You don't have to know your own password. But that's not the case for most people, and that's my point here. This awkward sort of flow diagram kind of is the experience of somebody logging into a website, right? And it starts at the top where you hit the login page right there. And immediately you ask yourself, do I know my username? Because that's not necessarily clear. Now, sometimes it's your email, sometimes it's something else. And if you don't, you have to go through a nice little username reset pass flow. If you've got past the username, if the answer to this is yes and or indeed maybe, because you can never tell until you put it in, we get to do I know my password. And again, that's the same problem. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. If you've got it in a password manager, you're probably fine. But if you are not, if you're a regular user, if you're one of the 76% of people not using one, do you know your password? Who knows? Maybe you have to go through a reset flow. If you think you know both of those, you can enter them in and hope for the best, at which point you find out whether you knew your email address, your username and password, and either go back to the start and maybe go through one of the reset flows again, or you get on and maybe hit a two-factor authentication challenge because it's a secure site, and then a text message is sent to your phone's in another room, you give up, you close the computer, you throw it out the window. That's the sort of regular user flow of logging into a website. That's the two-factor authentication message, right? Yeah, sure. The user experience of this ends up being, I have a scale of 0 to poop emoji on this, and it's just poop emoji. This is not a scientific scale. It's just how I like to think about things. It's a bad user experience, and we can make it better. Because it's full of friction. That's what I'm kind of talking about. It's full of that, do I know my username? Do I know my password? Am I right about either of those? And how long does it take to actually get to the thing we wanted to do in the first place? Do we want to buy the thing? Do we want to carry on the service? Whatever. So I'm going to run us through how we can do usernames and passwords better, real quick. I'm going to start with the HTML. HTML can actually help us an awful lot in this place. It makes the form more accessible. It makes the experience better and quicker. And so this is what a login form might look like, right? We've got a fairly straightforward form. It's got two inputs, a text input for our username, a password input for our password. The labels point to the right things. It's quite good. But there's more we can do to it than this. The input element itself is one of my favorite elements in HTML, possibly my favorite, because of how much scope it has. The amount of things you can do with a single attribute that change the behavior of an input element is incredible. The attributes available to us, some are less used than others. And the ones I want to kind of call out here, well, firstly, the type. Now, you might be able to change an input to a checkbox or a radio button or something, but in this particular case, if my form was, if my username was in fact an email address as well, then we probably should change that type to an email. That's going to help us on a mobile device. It's going to pop up the keyboard, which has an @ symbol like prominently on it, which is useful and helps people out. And then we've got AutoComplete. AutoComplete is going to feature quite a bit in this because it's the greatest attribute the input element has. In this case, AutoComplete username and AutoComplete current password allow us to give hints to the browser and indeed to any other technology like a password manager that might want to autofill these things in for you. Username is really useful. There is also AutoComplete email, but that's really for when you're dealing with somebody's actual contact details, not the thing you're using to log into a thing. Current password is really cool because there's also a new password, AutoComplete. That's particularly useful for your page where you're changing your password, and you have 3 different password inputs on the same page. One's for the old password, and 2 are for repeating the new password. But without new password and current password, browsers or password managers will autofill the same thing into all 3. But if you have new password and current password, then they'll be able to offer suggestions to the new password and the existing one to the current password. Actually, Firefox itself offers you a secure suggestion if you have AutoComplete as new password on an input. Really useful. So don't forget about these. AutoComplete, look it up. It's amazing. I have a little demo of just kind of my existing login flow. I've got a demo application that we're going to deal with for the rest of this app. And all it does is log in, which is annoying, really, because the entire app is 100% friction. But this, it's got nothing on the other side of it. It's amazing. It's got a log out button. But I just want to show you, like, this is the existing experience, right? We go to log in, and we have to do all the typing. Now, I happen to know my username and password for this. The password is secret. It's the most secure 6-character password I can think of. And I'm logged in. In fact, I've got a 2-factor authentication message, and there it is over the other side. 843293, cool. So I had to look at my phone, and then I come back over here, and oh my goodness, it was. Yeah. Are we logged in yet? Yes, we're logged in. Cool. Go away. I'll come back to that later. So that's our existing slow. I have to type everything in version. So let's see what else we can do. That had our autocomplete attributes on it, but because I wasn't using any other technology to autocomplete things, it didn't show up to help. But this is where we get to credential management, and for the people who put their hands up, they know about this. It's great. Credential management APIs in the browsers allow us to store and then retrieve our users' credentials. And so I was annoyingly clicking away the browser pop-up there to say, would you like to save your username and password in this? But that was just kind of the browser doing on its own. What we can actually hook into is triggering that and then using it later. Because if we, as a developer, as the website, trigger that pop-up, we're actually able to retrieve the password from the username and password from it later and make a smoother login flow. And I will show you how that works. Here's what the code looks like. It's actually fairly simple. We look for the password credential to be in the window object. And when we have that, we can create a password credential using our user ID and password. So this is once we know that the user ID and password is correct. So this could happen at registration or on a successful login. And once we create that credential, oh, hold on, I've got things there. There we go. This line, await navigator credentials store credential, allows you to then store it in the browser's credential management, the browser's password manager. And the real power of this is the next page, where we get to ask for it back again. So when the user comes to log in, we can go and retrieve those credentials. We say navigator credentials get, password is true. We're asking for password in this case. And that pops up another permissions thing from the browser to say, do you want to log in with these credentials? And if the user approves that, then they are through. You can write a function that says that pass them through. You can actually do this silently as well, which is kind of cool. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of it, but if you can kind of do that without the permissions dialog, and that will pass a user straight through, get the credentials for them and allow you to log them straight in. No friction whatsoever. I think maybe a little bit of friction is useful. But you can turn that on with unmediated is true here. But you can make sure that permissions always pop up if, say, a user has specifically logged out. And so when signing out, if you call a navigator credentials prevent silent access, that's a good thing for a user properly signed out. They don't want to be automatically signed in again. what does this look like? I think it's important to show kind of better what this looks like. So if I go and log out, I'm going to go back through my process. Well, 1 second. I need to check out the version of the code that does this. Credential Management, there you go. Ooh, basically, just uncommented a bunch of stuff. And now if I go and log in, this time around, we're going to see that same browser pop up to say, hey, do you want to store your username and password? But this time, I'm asking for that access. And I will be able to use it again later. So boom, we're going to log in. We know it's a successful login because we've succeeded. I'm saving it. I've got to go to my two-factor authentication. We'll cover making that better in a second. 703-434. And submit that, and I'm through. Now this time I'm going to log out, log back in again, and we see it work. No! Which one is it? Friction, exactly. Well, it doesn't help if I'm logging in and out a bunch of times, but it is that. Or I didn't do the right typing. Let's try it one more time. Yeah, all right, cool. I was right, I just typed it wrong. So this time around, I used that Credential Management API, and as I got a successful login, I stored the thing in the browser. So if I log out again and then go to log in, it's going to know it's me and suggest that sign in. Look at that. Woo. Do you want to sign in as Phil? I absolutely do. Sign in. So we've turned, in this particular case, our sign-in process from having to remember your username and password, having to type it all in, into a single click, a single tap, and we're through. And I'm very excited about that. Sadly, obviously, we've got stuck at two-factor authentication again, which hasn't even come through now. Oh, it's 941525. There we go. I have a bank that screams at me every time they send me a text message with a code in, being like, never tell anyone this. I'm like, it times out in 5 minutes. I will tell people then. It's true, you shouldn't obviously share these things. Oh my God, I'm going to run out of time. Brilliant, so we've got logged in. Let's go back. I'm going to run out of time if I don't get through this. So let's talk about two-factor authentication. I think it's super important because we have these usernames and passwords, and people who don't use password managers, and people who repeat themselves and use the same passwords all the time, and the whole thing is friction over and over again, right? So password reuse. This was in the same survey that I mentioned at the start. The blue slice of the pie there is people who reuse passwords some of the time. The yellow slice is people who reuse passwords all of the time. I love that. The people answering this survey were just like, how many passwords do I have? Just one. I use it everywhere. It's the greatest password. Those are the people getting hacked all of the time. It was 13% of people in this particular survey. 52 said some of the time. 13% said all of the time I reuse passwords. And then this nice little green slice of people who say they never reuse passwords. 35% of people in this survey said they never reuse passwords. I'll remind you that 24% of people said that they use a password manager. So 11% of people have a photographic memory or they're lying. And that's our users for you. It's a bad experience, and so and thus we also do. That always comes up too tiny. The problem about this is our problem. We've put all these problematic password things in the way of people. Your password must contain at least 8 letters, a capital, a plot, a protagonist with good character development, a twist, and a happy ending. If you can, you'll never remember that password, or maybe you'll only ever remember that password. It's a great story. But what this actually, the real things we do is say we must have a capital letter, some lowercase letters, a number, and a special character, right? And this is the perfect password for that because it does everything. It's got 8 characters, it's got 10 characters in it. Look at that enormously long password. But this gives attackers an easy way to patternize things. It's a dictionary word which starts with a capital letter, ends with the number 1, because why would you think beyond 1? And uses the exclamation point because it's a special character, but it uses the same key as number 1. You don't even have to move your finger when you're typing it in. And so when you have patterns like this, it makes it easier to brute force attack this kind of thing. And that's a bad thing. And then on the other hand, there are sites leaking our data all out over the place. And if you don't know haveibeenpwned.com, that gathers those leaks, those breaches, and shares to tell you whether your password has been part of that. And yes, it has. So either other people are leaking our passwords, or users are using the same password, or they're using an easily broken password. And so that's why we have two-factor authentication, so we can have one extra factor, one other reason to believe that this person is the right person signing in. And hooray for two-factor. But the user experience remains on the poop scale of poop. Because it's still more friction, like I said, we've watched me struggle to enter a code several times just today. And so let's make it better. We can actually help these get auto-completed and auto-filled in again. So I'm going back to the HTML and going back to autocomplete because on the input, when you have a code, if you include autocomplete as one-time code, then in Safari, when your text message comes through, it comes up in that little autocomplete bot on the keyboard, autocomplete on the keyboard, right? And it's just this one little attribute that allows that to happen. And it's wonderful. And if you've not seen it before, it looks like this. You go to log in, you get the message sent to you, and as you enter, you just go to enter the code, there it is. Boom. All right. It's too quick. There's no friction. It's wonderful. And so you only need that one little thing for it. So there it is, coming up in the top of the keyboard there. And you just hit that, it enters, we're through. It's glorious. We can do some other things to make this nicer. If your one-time code input is a text input, then you're going to see the keyboard for text, which is not a good thing because it's normally 6 digits that we're entering. And so if you actually add like input mode as numeric, it's going to make that a better experience for people who can't autocomplete because that brings you up your number keypad. Much nicer number keypad. So let's think about that. And then what about the desktop? I mean, this is only Safari right now, and that was only iOS that showed up there. But actually, if you happen to be a big Safari fan and have your desktop Safari set up as well, this actually works across to the desktop. And I'm going to hold up. Look at that. Woohoo! When the message comes through to your iPhone, if you've got iMessage like set up onto your device as well, it's going to do the autocomplete on your desktop, as long as you're in Safari. Right? So what's the other thing? WebOTP is our final thing here. This is the sort of Chrome, Android, and pushing to a web standard solution for this. And it allows actually a bit more security in this. Like that autocomplete kind of sort of works, but it really does actually just see a text message, see like 6 digits in it, and assume everything else works. Whereas WebOTP is a bit more strict than that. It enforces that the message that you send the two-factor authentication code into have 2 bits at the end of it. An @ symbol followed by the domain name on which the person should be logging in, and then a hash symbol, and then the code. Now, the @ symbol in the domain allows the browser and the operating system to agree to autocomplete on this site and this site only, which is a good phishing defense, right? If you are being phished for your two-factor authentication code, you're on a different domain, and therefore this will not offer the autocomplete for it because it doesn't match up. So it's a security thing to actually use this, which is very nice. WebOTP actually uses that very same Credential Management API. Looks a little like this, and instead of asking for the password in this case, we ask for the OTP transport of SMS. I really like this because that's an array which can have one element in it, which is the string SMS, which is cool. Got loads of options there to go in that array. So let's see that in action. I'm going to go to the demo, and this time bring up the phone. I'm going to do this on the phone this time. Assuming we can get a browser. There we go. So if I go back and refresh this login page, firstly what you'll notice is that because I'm logged in both my Google account, my Chrome account on both the desktop and the phone, that it's already synced my username and password across. So that is already still a one-tap process to get through the username and password section. And now, no, I didn't restart the server. No. I need to try that again. Because that wouldn't have had the code. I'm going to go back to login, start again. Oh no. Back to login, we get offered the login. This time it's going to send me the text message and offer me to autocomplete that text message. So it's come in as the text, and there's the permissions dialog to say, hey, do you want to read this and enter the code? And we allow it. We get access to the code, and we're through. Our login has gone from typing, finding the phone, and getting in there to tap to yes, log me in, and tap yes, use that code. I think that's cool. But you might be asking, what about the desktop in this particular case? And the desktop actually works as well. It's very cool. I hope it works. So it can be a bit finicky, but if you are in Chrome, in your Android device and your browser, and they all agree with each other that you're the same person, then the mobile device will offer you up to copy across the code that has arrived from the text message into the browser. It tends to require the devices to be on the same network as well. That has failed for me in the past. And I have not yet managed to check, because this is a last-minute talk, haven't managed to check if this works on this network. But cross your fingers for me. We're going to go and log in. We're going to sign in with a one tap. And what we should see is the text message come in over here on the right-hand side, and then an offer to copy that across, or just crash the browser in the background. Amazing. That was unexpected. Let's give it one more attempt at that. I'm going to log in with that. It doesn't need the browser to be open. This is just the device doing it. And so the message should arrive, and then it should give me the option. There we go. Submit this code on the other computer. If I press submit there, I'm hands off for the other side. We submit the code, and it enters it and logs me in. The security there, like you have to say that code is allowed to go from this device to the computer. And yeah, if you're not on the same network and things like that, it's not going to offer that up. But now our two-factor authentication is just it's much less friction. So it works across the desktop as well, at least if you're in Chrome and Chrome. Just talking a little bit about the future, like I kind of laugh at the idea that we have this single array that has one potential element to it. But I like this because it's the way that web gets designed and designed well. It's designed for extensibility. And if we come up with other transports and other ways to get an OTP code from a device, we can add to this API. And so I hope that this is something that can be built to deal with authenticator apps, or indeed other device-based authentication, being able to WebAuthn maybe from a phone to a desktop, anything like that. This is extensible and ready. But in general, I think these little changes, these little tweaks, Credential Management API and the AutoComplete kind of things that we have available to us, allow us to enhance and progressively enhance, because it doesn't work everywhere, but progressively enhance the experience for login. And I'd recommend that you take another look at your own login flows and see if you can reduce the friction for your users when they're getting into your application. That was a bit quick, but hopefully that was interesting. My name's Nash. I'm a developer evangelist at Twilio, and I would love to talk and meet you over at my stand sometime later. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. If anyone's seen a lightning talk, they're about half as slow as Phil. But for a last-minute ring-in and to fit into that time slot is pretty amazing. So can we have one more round of applause?
Thank you
Phil
so
Nash
much.
from Twilio. Thank you. We're about to kick off the next sessions. In this room, we have the mother of unicorns, Ming Johansson. If anyone doesn't know Ming, then stick around. You're in for a treat. An amazing advocate for our local tech community.